Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast, Green Sprouts. My name is Haya Eddosari, and I'm an environmental specialist. The goal of this podcast is to spread environmental awareness, and I hope you enjoy it. The podcast started in Arabic, but due to growing demand, we've started an English version. And this is the first English episode, and I'm super excited about it. In episode number 8, my guest is Shivani Shathasafam, and we will talk about vegan business opportunities. Shivani is an economist turned social entrepreneur, marketer, social instigator, and an athlete with a passion to challenge social norms. She graduated from the London School of Economics with a degree in economics and management. She now runs a social media platform called Plant-Based BH, dedicated to educate people about the benefits of a plant-based diet and promoting restaurants and cafes that offer vegan food. She's been the guide on the island of Bahrain for all vegans or anyone looking for healthy plant-based food. She creates connections between consumers and businesses. Shivani healed her body through a plant-based diet and over the years turned her passion towards vegan food into a business opportunity. She now provides consultations for restaurants and cafes and helps them offer good and affordable plant-based options to satisfy the growing demand for vegan food. Shivani has a lot to offer to the community, and we can learn a lot from her business mind. I had fun recording this episode with Shivani, and I'm sure you'll find it eye-opening as well. So without further ado, here's Shivani. So, hello. How are you, Shivani?
I'm doing good. Hey, it was quite interesting to hear that feedback about myself. So that was nice. I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great. I'm having fun. Like we just were talking before that we're used to working from home, so not a lot changed, but we do miss one another because we're friends.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Shivani, tell me a little bit about your diet prior to going vegan. Were you actually healthy? Did you work out? How was it before going vegan?
Okay, so I only went vegan 3 years ago. And before that, I would consider that I had a generally healthy diet. I was never a consumer of fast food, not very often anyway. I would have it like once a month. But otherwise, I would just generally eat vegetarian food. I was predominantly vegetarian because I come from an Indian household, and that's just the kind of food that we generally tend to eat. Other than that, I was eating chicken for dinner, which would usually be grilled chicken or like chicken shawarma or something of the sort. So it wasn't anything unhealthy that I would think. And I would eat a lot of greens as well. But then I also noticed that my health wasn't in the best condition. Even though I generally tend to eat like a healthy diet, I was still having a lot of health problems and I was quite young. So I didn't really think that a healthy diet and what I was struggling with was correlated. And I was going to the hospital a couple times a month. And I had in particular joint issues, especially in my knees, where I had inflammation that I come to now know of now, that I would actually have needed surgery in a year further going down the line. And I went vegan 3 years ago, and all of a sudden, all of the pain went away. I never had to go to a doctor again, and my breathing is fantastic. I no longer needed the knee surgery. My joints are just as good as new. And yeah, I didn't even go vegan for health, and I wasn't on a super plant-based healthy diet. I wasn't eating smoothie bowls and salads all the time. I just dove in and did a simple vegan diet, and it helped reverse everything that I was suffering for the past 10 years. So in general, it was quite a switch.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Shivani, let's stop a little bit. Could you set your phone on silent?
It's my WhatsApp notifications, like it's the app. So let me just turn it off. Preferences, notifications, sounds. Okay.
We'll go back.
You should not hear that. Okay.
So why did you go vegan, and how did you learn about veganism in the first place?
So I actually had a friend that went vegan, and we would study together. And I noticed that she wouldn't really share my lunches with me, and I would ask her why, and then she'd just say, "Oh, I'm vegan." And back then, I didn't quite exactly understand what it was, but I had a general idea of it. And so I asked her, like, why won't you eat chicken and all of this? It's good, it's healthy. And she's like, I'm not gonna tell you anything. I'm just gonna send you a bunch of documentaries to watch, and you make that decision for yourself. I'm like, okay. And so as usual, I got my chicken shawarma for dinner, and I would go home and I would watch the Earthlings documentary, and the rest is history. I'm here. I'm fully vegan. I was converted overnight and been on quite the journey since then.
Wow. So overnight, was that difficult for you to transform? Like, it was it a big transformation? Was it difficult?
Well, I would say that there's two answers to that question. Just because when I watched that documentary, it became ever so obvious to me that there's this whole world of behind the scenes that has to happen before your food, or what we used to consider food, what I used to consider food, that was chicken or eggs, had to go through to get to your plate. And for me, all of that just was not worth it. Talk about ethically, talk about financially, talk about the resources. None of it is worth it. And for me, it was such a huge price to pay for a meal that only lasted 5 or 10 minutes, which can be substituted with perfectly good food that serves your body and the environment at the same time. So it was a very cut and dry answer to me. So for me, the intention was so strong that going vegan wasn't hard at all. I'm just like, I don't consider those things food anymore, so I'm not going to put it on my plate. So in that sense, it was easy. But did I go fully vegan overnight? No. I always say that I went consciously vegan overnight, just because it took many months, if not years, to understand all of the different things that are in traditional foods that we eat. Like, I didn't know croissants had butter. I didn't know certain biscuits had dairy in them. So learning these things took a while, and then adapting to remove those things out of my diet. Yeah, so once I learned that they were not vegan, I would put them out of my diet. So that took a while, but generally speaking, it wasn't that difficult for me because I was kind of on a similar diet before anyway.
That's beautiful. And you said you didn't need a knee surgery after going vegan, but what other positive impacts on your health did you notice after going vegan?
Well, I had quite intense breathing issues before. Like, I'm very young. I was like 20, and I would like run up the stairs, and I would have issues breathing. And I was not an unhealthy person. Like I said, I didn't have any junk food. I was actually going to the gym as much as possible, so I was fit as much as I could be. So I had breathing issues that completely went away, and also I have a lot of trouble focusing, and I noticed that going vegan really helped me also focus. So it wasn't just a physical impact, it was also mental for me.
That's interesting. And to be completely honest, were there any negative impacts? Just, I don't want to be biased here, but
Yeah.
because some people go through a difficult period once they go vegan, and there are some negative impacts. So can you share them with us, please?
Absolutely. So for me personally, going vegan was the best thing I've done for myself physically and mentally. But the more I talk to people, I realize not everyone has had to go through the same journey just because they weren't predisposed to the life that I was. Most people that are like Bahraini, they tend to have meat every day for either breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So for them to substitute the main parts of their plate with something that is vegan and nutritionally complete is quite a hard thing for them to do, especially in the first few days and even the first few weeks or months. Because going vegan is not as simple as like, okay, I'm going to do this. The mistakes that a lot of people make is not understanding and not educating themselves properly of what they need to eat before they do it. And this is how it backfires on them. The thing is, we think of food as just a basic necessity that's around all the time, and we don't really have to put any effort into it. But when you really think about it, going vegan is kind of like a thing of its own that needs to happen, just because we are so used to thinking of meat and eggs and dairy as part of a healthy diet that it requires some unlearning. So when you unlearn certain things, you have to relearn certain things. And relearning that is so important. Relearning the nutrition of plants and how to feed yourself adequately so you don't have health issues is so important. And that's where I've seen time and time again people that tell me that they've had negative experience go through. They haven't taken the time to really understand. I always like to say it this way. For example, you find out about yoga and you want to start doing yoga. You're not just going to sit there and just do certain positions hoping that this is yoga. That's not going to be great. So you're going to go on YouTube, or you're going to see a professional do it. You're going to go to a class. You have to apply the same principles here. You're learning something new, and that requires educating yourself.
Wow, I like how you phrase it, like unlearn and then learn again, because this is exactly
Yeah,
what we all went through. And just to
exactly.
talk a little bit, you're all right. You have a good point when you said that you talked about the beans and lentils and your lifestyle and how it's different from Middle Eastern people here, because we do eat a
Absolutely.
lot of meat, and in Indian cultures they eat more lentils and legumes, and they're lucky that they're doing this because their digestive
Absolutely.
system is used to it. But from a biological perspective, actually, these digesting these kinds of foods, we've kind of outsourced this job to other species. Sorry, not other species, but to other um, microorganisms that do the job for us in our guts. So we don't know how to do it as a human body. We can't do it. So this is why we have the microbiome. It takes care of this job. So
Absolutely.
because of all the dairy and meat and processed food we eat and the sugar and everything bad we eat, we destroy these bacteria, these good bacteria. And then after a while, when we start eating legumes, we say, oh, the legumes are so bad. They're the problem, when actually this is just a symptom that you have a problem with your guts because of all the food that you've been consuming all your lives. And then suddenly the the legumes are the bad guy. So
Exactly.
yeah, we should treat it as a symptom. Like when you get bloating after eating lentils, it's a symptom that there's a problem. But when you do it gradually, so if you're a Middle Eastern like me, doing it gradually would help a lot to introduce it gradually to your system, so that the gut bacteria grows better and better by the time. This would allow it to allow your guts to have more numbers of these good bacteria, enable you to digest it properly. And like you said, we should learn and take it slowly, just like yoga, just like anything else in life. We have to learn it. And my question is, um, is it difficult, like as an athlete, is it difficult to build muscles on a vegan diet?
See, I can only reference myself when I say this. Like when I was not vegan, I was still working out quite a lot. And even though I was quite extreme with my workouts, when I got my results back, I noticed that I actually put on fat and lost muscle. Even though I was eating the chicken breasts, I was eating the tuna, and with salads and feta cheese, like clean proteins, or what I thought was clean proteins at that time. And it wasn't helping me with my fitness goals. And like they say, fitness is more about food than it is what you do at the gym, right? So, and then when I went vegan, I noticed that when I was, whether it was playing sports or going to the gym, I had insane amounts of energy. Hey, I had crazy energy. That was something that was so new to me because just a few months ago, I was the first one to like take a break. I was always sitting at the sidelines most of the time. From going to that, so being on the field 2 hours with no breaks and being the only person on the team taking no breaks, that was fantastic. And when I tell people this, I know I can tend to sound crazy, but that was my truth, right? So it gives you so much energy. And in terms of building muscle, I did build muscle quite easily, I think. For me, it was easy to build muscle, and I didn't see myself going super lean either. Like, I wasn't losing weight. People always say, "Oh, I went vegan and I lost a lot of weight. Now I'm super skinny." That's just because you're not nutritionally balanced. And so once you figure that out, and not like I went and did a nutrition course and then I started eating properly. No, I just like started seeing what are the different aspects of food that I have to include in my diet. And that was it. It was like a 10-minute thing that I did that changed the way I eat. And yes, if you, I did buy some vegan protein powder. Like if you're a bodybuilder, that's just something that everybody does as a bodybuilder, to consume protein powder. I myself had one, but I never used it a lot. Like I would use it once in 2 weeks just because, like if I had a really good workout, I'd be like, I can't let this go to waste, that I'd get those extra grams of protein in. But I really did not need that. So for breakfast, for instance, I would go to the gym in the morning and I'd work out for an hour, and then my post-workout meal was basically chickpeas from the khabaz with a bunch of arugula from the vegetable shop that was next door. So my breakfast cost me like 200 fils. It was very healthy. It's really filling and it's loaded with protein. It's as simple as that.
That's lovely. But you know how you said that some people um, can't go vegan because they're scared of the bloating from the legumes. There are other people, now that we're talking about fitness, there are people, and I was one of them, who are scared from carbs. I was terrified to go vegan for the longest time because I thought that this is something for people who don't gain weight like me. Because me, once I eat pasta, I'm going to gain weight. This is my body. My body can just eat vegetables, salads, and meat, fruits, pastas, potatoes, bread, rice. These are the demons in this life, and they're gonna make me fat. So I was terrified of going vegan. So I went vegan because of health problems. I had to go vegan to be healthy, but I wish I knew that I could consume them before. I wish I wasn't scared, and I just want you to tell us, is it true that carbs will make us gain weight, or is it just something we're just scared of and we don't understand what's going on here?
Carbs are really, really, really not the bad guy. They are the fuel source for the human body. What a lot of people tend to misunderstand is that we started using the word sugar a lot and coupling that with the word carbohydrates, right? So that's where I think the shift in mentality automatically points us towards carbs is a bad thing. But if you look at the traditional diet, if you look at the Bahraini diet, for example, what are carbs generally accompanied with? So, for example, guzi, it's like a bunch of meat with rice, or even kebab, it's bread with meat. So, it's the meat, it's the saturated fats that clog up our blood vessels that don't allow the insulin to open up and allow carbohydrates to be fed into the cells. So that's really the root of the problem. So when I studied about diabetes and things, like I'm no professional nutritionist. You can do the own research for yourself or go onto my page, onto the highlights, and see the science that I put down there. But in essence, it's the fact that our cells are clogged up by fats that are coming from different sources that are not carbohydrates or healthy carbohydrates, and that's what's not allowing the rice and the bread to not be processed and then be converted into fat. So we should look at the initial cause of that happening, which is the saturated fats and which come in the form of meats and dairy and cheeses and all of the other horrible things that we eat, whether it be vegan or non-vegan. Same with sugars. Don't eat processed sugars, don't eat processed food in general. That's where the real problem is. It's not in good carbs. If you eat good carbs, you're not going to see a huge difference in weight gain, and you're going to see a huge difference in weight gain actually. So it's just about choosing the right types of food for you and your goals. Yes, we all like eating junk food once in a while, but you'll be surprised to what extent we can make those junk foods clean and delicious at the same time without using all of the bad stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. You kind of lose interest in the old food once your taste buds are used to the good food right now, especially when there's no dairy. So, dairy
Yeah,
plays a huge role in changing how we taste food and how we like certain foods and how we don't like other foods, because it kind of, like, many times if you think about mashed potatoes, it's tasty, but what makes it really exciting is the cheese, you know. So if you take out the cheese, you're not craving it as much as you think you would, because the cheese is what's addictive. It's not the mashed potatoes, you know, with everything. It's the cheese part, not the potato part.
true.
Yeah. So now you went vegan, you changed your life, and uh, you started going to social media. And you told me before that you weren't into social media at all. And then suddenly you made a huge jump, and then you started an account called Plant Based VH. And then you started talking about adopting a plant based diet here on the island. And you started spreading information about this, and you started helping businesses out. So, what led you to start your social media journey?
Okay, so when I went vegan, it was not generally for health, but then 1 month later, since all my health issues just went away, it made me start questioning a lot of things. I'm like, how did the doctors not know about this? Why isn't there more information about this? Why are people not telling us that meat is as bad it is for us? And especially for someone like me that wasn't consuming beef in the first place, and I still had all of those issues, right? So that took me into researching the things that go in the back office basically. And what I came to learn is that there's huge lobbies that are hired by the meat and dairy industries that funnel millions of dollars into keeping the public image that meat and dairy and eggs are good for you, and funding studies that claim this by creating false data that are through incorrect scientific methods or skewed scientific methods, and it's just not fair. And so they have that influence in media as well. So they kind of put this idea in our heads, and it's very easy to succumb to it because this has been done for generations. So it's not just us, it's our grandparents, it's our parents that have been through this whole thing with us. So it's a generational lag that we have to get over, not just like, oh yeah, I figured this out, it should be easy to switch. It's much deeper than that. The problem is rooted much deeper than that. It's ingrained into the fabric of society at this point, right? To eat meat and dairy. So to get over that, it's going to be so much harder. And so what I did with my account is just I just wanted to educate people on what a plant-based diet can do for you, and just share my story. In essence, like, it helped me out. And the more research I did, it shows that there's science behind what had happened to me and why I felt the way that I did going vegan. And I was just on a mission to share that scientific research. And the more doctors came out saying that plant-based diets are good for you, but we don't really get that kind of outreach in this region, especially when most of the science is being done in the Western world. And I kind of wanted to expose that here. And so that's what led me to create this account and share all that information.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely lovely. And tell us about you started in January 2019,
Yeah.
and you started with Veganuary,
Yeah.
and you had so many collaborations. Can you tell us a little bit about these collaborations and how these businesses um, listen to you? Did they accept it in a positive way or a negative way, or how did they like it? And tell us about people's reaction to this, because we've, like you said, most of these things are done in the West, but here it's not given the right attention. So tell us about these cool collaborations that you had, especially with the milk, the cafes and the vegan milk.
That's a very good question. So, when I first started my campaign, I did not expect it to go as big as it did and to get as much attention as it did. So, it was quite overwhelming to see how many businesses and people were actually open to the idea. So, in a sense, even I was holding myself back, being afraid of the world of vegan. right?
Mm.
But then I only noticed that so many businesses were totally for it, and they kind of knew the direction that the world was going towards, and they knew that they had to be supportive of it. And that's where like I got so much love and appreciation from all of these different small and large businesses around Bahrain, just to work with them and to share all the plant-based offerings that they have to the community. So when people, that's part of what I do on my page, right? It's kind of like a compilation of all the vegan and plant-based things that you can get around Bahrain. And businesses took that opportunity to reach out to this part of the population as well. And so when I introduced this campaign to businesses, I really thought they would be super skeptical about it. Like, I'm a nobody, I have no background in any of this. But they actually listened to me and they were all for it, and they wanted to do events with me. And it was mind blowing, actually, the amount of support that I got. And I couldn't be ever so thankful for it. And I met people like you on there that were extremely great supporters of mine, and you had no idea where I was coming from. So for actual proper influencers like you to get on board with it was a huge deal for me.
Thank you, Shivani. Actually, it was great to see this initiative because you had so much passion and people can feel this passion. And actually, your account has become a guide for all vegans in Bahrain, and not just vegans, really, anyone who wants plant based food. They're following you because you have highlights where you say, okay, if you want dessert, you go here. If you want the local food, you go here. If you want Mexican food, you go here. So it's become a guide. Like even me in my account, I deleted all the vegan restaurants and all the guide thing because people don't need to follow me for this. They can go to someone who is specialized in this, and you give very good reviews of restaurants and good food. And there are many restaurants who are just conventional places, but then they have a few vegan dishes, but then nobody knows about them, and I wouldn't know about them if it weren't for you. And this is where I see that there is a gap of communication between us vegans and cafes and restaurants, and even just the food providers, even supermarkets. They should know what we want. So there is a gap here, and I believe that you filled this gap and you continue doing this amazing job. But at the same time, how do you see the vegan food scene in Bahrain when it comes to supermarkets, cafes, and restaurants? Are they offering enough? Did they change? How are they changing? And tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, so I can definitely say we've come a long way since when I first went vegan 3 years ago. 3 years is actually a very short time if you think about it, but it has been growing exponentially. Like back then, you only had about one or two brands of plant based milks in the supermarkets. Now, if you go to Lulu, Al Lusra, or Al Jazeera, you have over 10 to 20 brands to pick from. And from those 20 brands, they all offer each of their own flavors. So now there's an extremely wide choice and variety of drinks that you can choose from. And these are only talking about the plant based milks, right? So dairy is a huge component of our food, whether it be for dessert, whether it be for your coffee, or it just be for food. And so solving that one problem was a big, big deal in our local community. And going beyond that, dairy is such an easy thing to make at home, like nut based milks and plant based milks. It's so easy to do it at home, and it's environmentally sustainable, and you get to choose what ingredients go into it. If you notice, some of the brands are not very clean. They do have sunflower oil and all these kinds of additives that not don't make it the best thing to buy. So it is more cost effective and environmentally sustainable to make them at home, which is also super easy, and you can find a guide for that on my page. Going back to the question you asked, I do see that restaurants are becoming more friendly to plant forward diets, not necessarily vegans, because I do think that vegans are a very small sliver of the population, and it's not fair to ask restaurants to cater to just them, right? But what we're seeing more and more is that people are choosing to eat healthier. And when you say healthier, that removes the saturated fats, that removes the key components of what makes an unhealthy diet. And with it goes dairy and the meat proteins and eggs. So that's where we're seeing more plant forward cuisine really shine. And we're seeing a lot of restaurants and cafes trying to adopt this into their menus. But what I've also noticed is that, like you mentioned, there is a gap between the consumer and the business. The business has no way of finding out what that clientele needs or even wants. And so what they end up doing is they resort to the easy things that their chef can currently do. And this always tends to be, from my observations, the same penne pasta with vegetables. And they usually have to say, don't put cheese in it, but then they put cheese in it and you have to take it back. Or they have the falafel burgers, the falafel sandwiches, or just salads with some chickpeas thrown on it. So what I'm seeing is a very lackluster choice of options, but obviously there's some places that are doing an amazing job of creating really well-rounded dishes of the the protein, the carbs, the fats, and they're doing a great job of doing the right combinations of foods and exploring the different varieties of vegan ingredients that do exist, which is literally any ingredient on the planet that is not an animal, right? So we're kind of spoiled for choice here, but restaurants tend to always go for the very easy things to do, and to their own faults. So they're not quite understanding what the client wants. And when this fails, they're saying, oh, our vegan dishes are not selling. Well, that's because you're not putting in the same effort as you do for the non vegan dishes.
Mhm.
All clients are the same. They just want a good meal that is worth their money and time. If you're not putting the same effort, you can't blame them when you don't see the increase in sales. So, from a business perspective, it makes sense to invest the same amount of resources that you do into other dishes, into, if you want to expand your menu and attract more people. And this is exactly why I felt the need to create this consultancy that I'm currently working on, to help businesses understand what the clients need and how to do that. It's very easy to say, well, there's the internet. I can just go on there. I can look at some vegan recipes and boom, I can offer them. My chef can cook up the recipes and there we go. We have vegan menu now. That has been proven to mostly not work up to 90% of the time, just because the chefs, generally speaking, don't know how to use vegan substitutions, for example, like using vegan eggs and vegan butter, dairy, and things like that. So there is a little bit of a skill that lacks over there, that chefs first have to understand and learn properly before they can offer such a menu that is good. Otherwise, if they know that and they're done, they're scaring away their current customers by being bold and saying, we now offer a vegan menu. What they don't understand is, yeah, as fast as veganism is growing, you have to understand that we still have the bad conceptions behind it that govern our mentalities and thinking towards it. And the people that are looking at your menu might not know what veganism is. They might still attribute it to the same old things that we used to think it once was. Vegan food is boring, vegan food is like, fancy, vegan food is expensive. It is none of those things. So to really attract people, there's a lot of marketing things that have to go into doing it properly. And only vegans know these small nuances, especially those that have done businesses, and those that have worked with different kind of chefs, and those that are recipe developers themselves. And I don't know if you get the point, Haya, but I'm all of the three.
Yes, exactly. And you bring a very good point, because there are so many places that I used to go to, but then I stopped. And then when, because they don't offer the food that I want after I went vegan. And a lot of them, when they start offering vegan food, it tastes bad because they don't know how to make it. And many times I've always said, I wish I could just go to the kitchen and tell them, change this, and it would be right, because they don't understand how our taste buds uh, taste the food, how we taste the food. It's different when you're not exposed to dairy, when you don't eat meat for many years, you taste the food differently. So it needs a different kind of perspective. You have to look at it differently. So we know what we're talking about, just like we really don't like meat at this point. And many people don't even crave the texture of meat in food and mock meats. They don't like it. Some people, I'm one of these people. So I'm looking for some good quality vegan food. And because cafes and restaurants are not offering this kind of food, I've been going from one place to the other, and then I gave up and I started making my own food. So right now I'm just cooking a lot more often at home, when I used to, profit these shops and businesses, and I no longer do this. So as a customer, I left these places. I don't go to them anymore. And I believe many people are doing the same thing. And some of my family and my friends as well share the same views. They stopped going to some places because they don't find the good food that they're looking for. And when there is food, it's not great. When there is vegan food, I mean, it's not great, like you said. So my question is, um, does this actually, is this just an anecdote or from myself, or is it actually globally or even locally? Does this hurt businesses when people go vegan and stop going to this, or are we just such a small percentage of the population that we have no impact?
Okay, so there's definitely a thing about the restaurant industry that we have to note. It is an extremely volatile industry, and if you're not built to change and evolve, you will fail as a business. 95% of restaurants fail. Does not matter whether you're vegan or non-vegan. That's just the state of the industry. So to be one of the 5% that actually make it to 5 years, that itself is a goal on its own. And forget about the plant-based menu, forget about the vegan options. But you have to, and to do that, you have to observe where the trends are moving. And around the world, it's becoming more and more obvious. Even if you're not vegan, it's very hard to miss that it's definitely commanding the food space. On Instagram, more often than not, you're going to see a vegan food post every now and then, just because this community is sharing their food on social media now more than ever. So they're basically a better customer for you, just because when they do find a good dish, they're going to post about it. They're going to tell their friends about it. And word of mouth and having your customers market for you has been shown that brings repeat sales and that grows a business. And without that, and so by not delivering to those customers, you're really doing your own business a disservice by saying, oh, the vegan population is so small that it's not worth paying attention to. What you don't realize is that if you're a group of 7 friends or 10 people, even if one person on that group is vegan, they're not going to go to a place that's not vegan friendly and that they can enjoy a proper meal. That's what's been happening with me. That's what's been happening with everyone I've met. Their families have stopped going to certain restaurants because they don't offer a good vegan meal. Like if someone in a group has to eat like the basic salad with the chicken and the cheese, take it out of it, and then they have to eat bread with hummus, the rest of the group is going to feel very bad for them. And the next time they're not going to pick that place. So you're not just missing out on the vegan customers who are great marketing for you, you're missing out on all the collective groups that they come with. And have you ever met a vegan that doesn't have friends or family? Like, so you're missing out a big chunk of the population. And so when you're not putting your business senses forward and when you're directly thinking about vegan food through the lens of a non-vegan and thinking it's not a proactive market to be in, you're really, really, really doing a disservice to your business. And by not doing it properly, you're more likely to spend a lot of money into developing vegan options and putting it on the menu and reprinting your menus and losing out and failing. And worst case, your business might close because there's so many intricacies that go behind making a proper menu that everyone is a fan of. You're not trying to target only the vegans. Vegan food in general is amazing. If you look at our own traditional food, most of the things are plant based. We eat hummus, we eat matruba, which in the past was made without chicken. Now it's only very recently that we started adding meats to the traditional dishes that we used to eat before in the past, and as recently as 50 years ago. So for us to create a plant-based menu, or for us to go back to our roots, is not a difficult thing. It is not a new concept. It is just adapting back to the same things that are now growing in demand and now growing in popularity. And now, inevitably, we are seeing that major food corporations who have so much money behind them going vegan, going plant based, adding vegan items that are amazing and that look delicious, not just to the vegan, but to the non vegans, just enough to try it. And when the non vegans try it and they're like, this is as good as the non vegan one, I'm just going to stick with this if it's going to do less damage to me, you know? So if it's being able to cater to all kinds of people, why would you not do that? It only makes sense from a business perspective to do that. Whatever your views on the ethicality or sustainability part of it is, it makes more business sense to do it properly and add plant based items to your menu. But again, like I said, it's not as easy as said and done.
You're right. And I like it, like some places do, like you said, offer conventional food and vegan and vegetarian and gluten free. So people are changing and they need to adapt. Restaurants need to adapt and change. So I've noticed this myself, and I went through it, and I'm just grateful for those who provide food for everyone, so that, like you said, we can go as a group of friends or family, and we can enjoy a nice dinner and have all the food that we want. And it should be done right, like you said. But like you said before, that we are a small percentage. So you're right; they are losing when they are not providing good vegan food for vegans. But will they, like, if I was a business owner and I have conventional normal food with meat and dairy, would it be profitable for me to make this switch and to collaborate with a person like you, a consultant like you, and change? Or and am I going to save when it comes to ingredients and all that? Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Okay, so if you go to any supermarket, you will see that the cheapest thing in the supermarket are actually vegan ingredients. You have your rice, you have your lentils, you have your chickpeas, you have your beans, you have your veggies and fruits. All of those things are vegan. You can make delicious meals out of that, main courses, without having fancy ingredients in them. And you can have a very well-rounded menu based just on those things as a traditional restaurant. And so your food costs, when you start incorporating these things, are actually going to go down because you're not buying anything that you don't already have in the kitchen. What's the weirdest thing you're going to have to buy? Maybe nutritional yeast or some things that are very
Flaxseed.
specific to vegan food. You know, so maybe, yeah, exactly, like seeds and those kinds of things that you're going to have to add to your ingredient list, but they don't really cost that much. They're actually very cheap, and they can be bought in bulk and they can be stored in your kitchen storage. And that's not the case with meat, chicken, and dairy. You're going to have to buy them in small amounts to whatever amounts that you can freeze. And you have the risk of contamination, you have the risk of cross contamination. And so actually creating a non-vegan menu and a non-vegan restaurant is actually more complicated than creating a basic plant-based menu that is loaded with whole foods. And if you want to go the fancy route and start offering junk food items like fast foods and things like that, you're gonna have to buy some of the imported goods, and of course that comes with its own premium. But the costs of even those are going down in price just because it's basic economics. The more demand there is, the more supply there will be, and the lower costs will go. And so we're seeing that drop in price, and which is making it more valuable to restaurants that want to offer these options. So it is not actually that much more expensive. You're going to have to spend a little bit more on some ingredients, but the vast majority of the ingredients you will need, you probably already have in your kitchen, and some you're going to have to get, which is not going to cost you a lot.
And I'd like to point out one thing, that it is affordable when it's done right, like you said, and not buy everything that is imported and processed, like cheeses and all. But there's another perspective to look at this. We're not just talking about vegans here, because many of my friends are not vegan, but they don't like dairy, for example. They don't like how it feels when they eat it. Their digestive system doesn't work well with dairy. And so they cut it off. So they're looking for vegan options. And I can't remember where the supermarket is. There was this supermarket that is specialized in healthy food, mainly vegan food. And they asked people around if they're vegan or not, and they found out that 70% of the people who buy from that supermarket are non-vegans, and only 30% are vegans. So
Yeah.
like you said, more and more people are choosing plant-based options because it's healthier, because it's better for them, because of allergies, because many people are allergic to eggs and dairy. So it's important to look at this from a different perspective. We're not taking sides here. We're looking at it from
Exactly.
a business perspective and how to be successful. So they're basically missing out on a huge chunk of customers who would be very happy to pay for their products. And the cool thing is, like when Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger, when they launch a new campaign with KFC or something, the customers are going to be, they're basically fans, and they're going to talk about it, and they're going to share it, and they're going to be your marketing agents because they're very passionate about this topic.
Yeah.
We are really passionate, and I think most vegans are like that, because they want other people to know about this, because they have a message and passion towards this, and they want more and more people to learn about vegan food and how cool it is and how tasty it is. So
It's a
you
growing movement. Yeah.
exactly, so you have people who will do a big part of the marketing for you, like you said, by taking pictures of their food and sharing it on social media. And it's super exciting, and it's important to collaborate with the right people to do it right. Like you said, looking up recipes might be good, but then you don't know how we actually like it. And when it's done properly, it's going to be more profitable on the long run and the short run, of course. And
You're not going to make a loss because, sorry, if I can just
go ahead.
add something there. Since I've been doing a lot of research on the business side of things, just disregarding the food for a second, what I've come to realize is that 90% of the businesses that attempt to add vegan menu items actually lose a lot of money in the process. And this shouldn't scare business owners, because the businesses that do it successfully have seen their sales increased anywhere between 200% to 1000%, and their social media followers increased by 3000%. So if you do it right, there's a lot for you to gain from it. But if you do it wrong, there's a risk to it financially, or if worse, even having to shut down, just because the costs have risen so much and you've spent so much time doing it the wrong way. And I've personally seen businesses in Bahrain that have done this wrong, that have lost money, and now that are trying to do it the right way. And same across the globe. I mean, now there's more awareness of this in the Western world, so there's more people for them to reach out to help them to do this. But in Bahrain, I understand why companies have the thinking that they don't have anyone to rely on to do this, which is why I created my new normal consultancy business, which is to help businesses like this who are looking at the trends and seeing that if they don't get on board with it, they will be lost in the very near future. Because at some point, it is not going to be whether or not you have a plant-based option. If you don't, you're not a good business. End of story. Because that's what we've seen happen in many industries across the times in the digital era, when we had cameras come in, and then we had businesses like Kodak not adapting to digital technology, and they're like, our cameras are the best selling in the world. We will never go out of business. And then they did, because they did not adapt and change. And why should this be any different? Food is the fastest growing industry and it's the most volatile. And if you're not ready to change and adapt, you will be lost. And just in the last 5 years, which is again a very short term period, we've seen the massive rise of deliveries. We've seen online ordering. We've seen talabat blow up. All of this happened in the very recent future. And if you didn't have the systems to adapt to that back then, you would have lost your business by now. So it's a fast moving, fast growing market, and it is extremely weird, and you don't know which trajectory it's going to take, and someone's always going to disrupt you, and it is a market that is super open to disruption. So you have to be able and open to not allow the disruption to affect you. You have to be able to disrupt yourself, so you're safe from the negative forces of economics and industry in general.
Mm, beautiful. But and really, Shivani, there are some places. I was walking close to a restaurant the other day, and I was hungry, and I wanted to go in, and I looked at their menu that they put outside, and everything had eggs, dairy. It felt so old to me, because
Yeah.
this is just not the kind of food where I'm used to right now. And I see many places changing, and many places are holding on to old methods of food, and they don't even have a tiny section for healthy food, not vegan, just healthy food. And the other thing is that we see big fast food chains like Burger King, um, KFC, and Popeyes using plant-based meat and providing it for their customers, because they know the change is coming. But there's another fast food chain that I'm not going to say the name of, but they're refusing to uh, change. They're holding on to their old methods, and they're happy where they are. But at the same time, they're not going forward, because they're just following the Kodak example that you just mentioned. They're just staying where they are, and they refuse to change. And I hope they change, and I hope most businesses change and look at the bigger picture. If you don't adapt, you will go extinct, basically.
Yeah,
um, law of nature. And
exactly.
I'd like to wrap it up with a few advices, like for a few pieces of advice, like from you as a vegan, for someone who wants to go vegan. Can you give them a few tips on how to change and how to start changing?
So everyone's journey into veganism is different. People go vegan for mainly three different reasons. It's either their health, the environment, or the animals. And so, depending on what reached your heart, or like what's the reason behind that, I think it's important that you firstly educate yourself on what the food that you should be eating is, and are you eating a well balanced diet, and also like educating yourself on the practices that go behind bringing that chicken and meat and eggs to your plates, because it truly is horrendous. And once you see that like with your own eyes, you really don't think of those foods as appetizing after you see the dirty conditions, the slaughter, and all of the horrible stuff that go into food, like go into the animals, like the hormones, the antibiotics, and all of those things. You're instantly going to feel like, I don't want that in my body, whether it be for animal or environmental reasons, just for the health wise. You don't want those things in your body, like it's horrible. So just be aware of those facts, keep reminding yourself. So if you fall off the wagon and you eat a burger or something, it's not the end of the world. Don't feel like you have to be 100% vegan. There's no perfect vegan, and it's not about perfection. That's something that I've seen that vegans always struggle with. Oh crap, I ate something with butter in it and I feel bad. It's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. You now know you can either choose not to eat it, and if you do eat it, so be it. You can always try better next time. And so it instead of taking a super strict approach, like I'm going to go vegan overnight, and that's more likely to fail than to help you become a long-term vegan. So the goal is to make a sustainable change. And if you're not able to do that overnight, that's perfectly fine. What you need to be doing is reducing your meat intake and just adding more plant-based whole foods into your diet, and just go slowly through it. If it takes a month for you to get rid of the animal products, that's fine. Just try to switch out one thing at a time. First, start with dairy. 60% of the world population is actually lactose intolerant. We just don't know it. And we think that the symptoms and all the things, the tiredness, the acne, all of these things are not correlated to the food that we eat, or rather is genetics. That's not really it. Like I almost never have acne these days just because I don't eat dairy. And then so that's a very simple one to change, and you will see immediate effects of that. And so once you start seeing the effects, you'll be like, wow, this feels great. I'm going to start cutting out the chicken. I'm going to start cutting out the eggs and the meat and whatever. And so start just one thing at a time. That's a good strategy. Otherwise, just learn more, learn about your food, learn about the system, learn about all of the things that go into food. And it's either the disgust that's going to keep you vegan, or it's the facts of the horrible acts of atrocity that have to go into these poor animals that we consume as food, which is really just not right. And yeah, as a business, it's this is the direction that the world is going into. And if you're not seeing this, put on some glasses. Or yeah, but do it right. I'm here to help anytime a business needs cafe, small or large. We are here. And the vegans community in general is super helpful. Like me and Haya, for example, we support each other in ways that we don't really see in other sides of social media. So vegan influencers, vegan businesses, they tend to be a massive community. So once you even step into this part of social media, you're going to see a massive blow up. And so more people are going to be more aware of your products, more people are going to be interested in them. And as a consumer, I'm going to be so excited to have a new item and then tell my friends about it, and then have my friends come try it, which is exactly what I've been doing every time I see an amazing vegan option in Bahrain. So whether you're a person or a business, going vegan is just one good thing that you can do for yourself that is going to have a lasting effect for you and the planet.
That's beautiful. And like you said, when businesses offer vegan options, there's like an army of people who really are excited about trying new kinds of food. And there is a gap in the market here. And this is what we're trying to point out, Shivani and I, and especially Shivani with her work, offering consultations for businesses, and she's helping them out and she's helping the community. So what if someone wants to learn about veganism and the right places to go to, and if someone wants to know about you and your business, can you please share your social media contacts so people can follow you and learn more from you?
Sure. My Instagram page is plant-based BH, and businesses can go to newnormal.co, which is my consultancy page. And both of these accounts are tied in because a lot of the education comes out of plant-based, and a lot of the education for businesses go into New Normal. And so you can reach out to me on Instagram, or you can also email me at weare@plantbasedbh.com, and for businesses at newnormal@plantbasedbh.com.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Shivani. Do you have any final words you'd like to, last words to tell people and give them some advice about the vegan scene here in Bahrain, and how we can help change the scene here and how they can help themselves?
Okay, so since I went vegan, I've made a lot of amazing friends, like Haya. And I've, interacted with so many different kinds of people that I've never even, that I would never have imagined to do that. And I've eaten much larger varieties of food that even as a non-vegan, I wasn't aware of. So I'm eating the best food of my life, and I feel the best that I've ever felt. And I have the best people in my life. So if not for all of these three things, then life is pretty much pointless. And I'm not saying you should go vegan to have a meaningful life. But for me, it's transformed my world, and I hope it can do the same for you, just one step at a time.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Shivani, for all your beautiful insights. And we've learned so much from you. And I hope more and more people will learn from your Instagram account and your consultations as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Haya. As usual, it's wonderful chatting to you.
It's a pleasure. So that was Shivani and our conversation on vegan business opportunities. I find it truly amazing how people do small changes in their personal lives, gradually and slowly grow, and then share this beauty with the people around them. If you work in the food industry, then I hope this episode helped answer some of your questions, or at least opened your eyes to another side of consumers' changing behavior. And for the rest of the people, I hope Shivani's story was inspiring enough for you to explore the world of plant-based food. Thank you for listening to Green Sprouts podcast, and please let us know what you think of this episode. To learn more about our work in environmental awareness, please follow our social media channels. On Instagram at green.sprouts, on Twitter at greensproutsme, on our YouTube channel greensproutsme, or simply email me on heya@greensprouts.me. All the podcast episodes are available on SoundCloud and iTunes. Please follow us on these platforms and share your comments and ideas to help us create better content for you. All the mentioned links are available on our website greensprouts.me. Thank you for listening to Green Sprouts podcast. Until next time, this is Heya at Dosiri.
Let's go.